Welcome into NFL Total Access. I'm Omar Reese, and happy 4th of July weekend. One of the only times on the calendar the NFL world might be actually able to take a breather, but not us, because that means most of your fantasy drafts are next month. Adam Rank here to tell you everything you need to know, plus two of the best in the business. Steve Wyche and Brian Baldinger are standing by, but we're going to start like we so often do with the Dallas Cowboys, who helped make this announcement earlier today. The epic announcement. Now the aforementioned Steve Wyche and Brian Baldinger joining us throughout the show. Gentlemen, they're still America's team because if for no other reason, they're the most talked about team in America. And for the third time, we'll get to see them featured on HBO's Hard Knocks. We've talked a million times about Dak's return, the explosive offense, the need for improvement on defense. And guys, we're going to talk about it a million more times before we get to week one. But what behind the scenes elements do you want to see about the Cowboys during this Hard Knocks season? Baldy, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm coming from NFL Films. Well, Kenny Rogers and his staff of producers will be working 24/7 to peel back that curtain. And when they look behind it, I want to see just what the dynamics of this coaching staff is going to be like. We know Mike McCarthy's a head coach, but he doesn't call the plays. Kellen Moore does that. We got a new defensive coordinator coming in, Dan Quinn, replacing Mike Nolan, a new staff on that side of the ball. I want to see behind the curtains how this staff puts this team together. Because, Steve, as you know, as we know, Dan Quinn's got a monumental job and task to do to put a quality defense on the field this year.
Yeah, Baldy, you know, think back to when Hard Knocks with the Cleveland Browns, and we saw that coaching dynamic. Remember the great scene around the table with Hugh Jackson and some of the assistant coaches, including Freddie Kitchens and Todd Haley, and you saw right then and there it wasn't going to go well. So, you know, look, the relationship, we know the storylines again. Zach, CeeDee Lamb, rookie Micah Parsons, you know, the rookie cornerback, you know, Nashawn Wright, who said he was more athletic and agile, Richard Sherman. The cameras are going to focus on them. But over the course of this fantastic series, again, I'm going to be looking at how the coaching staff relates to the players, how they respond to this coaching staff, because one element I'm looking at is the secondary. We know that's been a really tough part of this Cowboys roster. Well, Mike McCarthy's going to be reunited with Joe Witt, who was his cornerbacks coach in Green Bay. And Witt really developed a lot of players like Sam Shields and Tramon Williams, really helped the rebirth of Charles Woodson, even was getting considered for defensive coordinator jobs back then. They've been apart for a couple of years. They're reuniting, and the potential of Witt to help out his secondary and to help out his guy Mike McCarthy is a really, really an A to B line I'm going to try to watch throughout this series and, of course, throughout the season.
Yeah, you know, Steve, I think that, you know, when I watch the practice part of it, obviously this is an elite receiving corps with Amari Cooper and all the names, CeeDee Lamb and the group going up against a very inexperienced and a new secondary. And so I want to see, you know, Dak and his health going up against a secondary that has to get better on the field. I mean, I go back to when the Cowboys turned it around coming off a 1-15 season, and Jimmy Johnson blew the whistle about 6 seconds into practice and just started scrimmaging. Like, he wanted to find out who was in shape, who was ready to play, who improved in the offseason. And I think we're going to find out a lot about the mettle of some of the defensive players that we may hear about all year long in this series.
Each of the last two times the Cowboys were on Hard Knocks, 2002, 2008, they didn't make the playoffs. Obviously, if the Cowboys are going to get to the playoffs this season, they need to improve that defense. You guys mentioned Dan Quinn. You mentioned effort. Of course, talent upgrades on the roster. Micah Parsons mentioned coming in. There's the scheme that Dan Quinn will bring in. Baldy, which of those, scheme, effort, talent improvement, will help the Cowboys improve the fastest here as we get ready for week one?
Well, I would take scheme, and I would do this, Omar, because it's not about scheme. I mean, they tried that last year. It's about effort. I mean, there were games last year when they were giving up 40 and almost 50 points, and I could just pinpoint. If I had a clicker and a button on it, I'd just be able to point that effort out. That's what I think it's got to start. It's got to start with supreme effort on that side of the ball. Once you get that going, you know, and you find out the guys that want to give it, lay it out there on the line, you can coach those kind of players up.
Oh, Baldy, we know Dan Quinn is going to find out who wants to play ball. I mean, he's going to bring that whole Navy SEALs approach with him to this defensive side of the unit. He's going to find out really quick who wants to play. But on top of effort, communication, that clearly was a big issue. Just watching the Cowboys, where you would see a player who's not where he was supposed to be. So I think, Omar, the communication, the effort is going to be very huge for this defense to get better.
Yeah, one of the worst in the league last season. Kind of reminds me of that 2013 Cowboys defense that was one of the worst in the league that season. Monty Kiffin left as defensive coordinator. Rod Marinelli replaced him. Then in 2014, not only did they get to the playoffs, they beat the Lions, and they were a Dez Bryant catch away to getting to the NFC Championship game. Cowboys fans, I'm sure, hoping for a similar turnaround. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Snap to Prescott. Heaves it deep down the left side for Gallup. He's got it. Touchdown.
McCaffrey breaks free, scores standing up at the C in Carolina.
Long and deep. Beckham's out there. He's got it. Touchdown. OBJ. Here's Saquon Barkley. And he's off to the races. Saquon for 6.
A throw over the middle. It is caught by George Kittle. He'll race for a touchdown. 10, 5, touchdown.
Hey, there's Dak again. On this all-star roster, a who's who of players returning from injury this season. Adam Shine's 9 is up on NFL.com right now. Here are some of his favorites. Steve, we'll start with you this time. I want to ask you, which players stand out to you that are making a return from injury here in the 2021 season?
Well, look, I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball, and that's Derwin James, the just all-everything safety who's been off the field basically the past 2 seasons because of injury. He is now going to be paired with Brandon Staley, one of the most creative defensive minds. We saw what he did with the Rams last year, and Jalen Ramsey, who was an incredible chess piece. I think he's going to do the same thing with Derwin James. Strong safety, free safety, some outside linebacker tendencies, and that is really going to allow Derwin James to show his greatness. It just all depends on James's durability to see if we will finally see how great of a player that he is.
Steve, I'm going to stay on the West Coast, and I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to say Nick Bosa. I thought when Nick came in as the second pick in the 2019 draft, he changed the culture of the 49ers as much as any player on any team. I mean, immediately he made everybody around him better. The defensive backs got better because of his constant pressure. The way that he practiced, what he brought to that team, and to see it get dismantled so quickly last year, hurt in the second game of the season, I felt like the wind went out of the 49ers sail the day that he got hurt.
Now, hey, look, I'm going to flip it back to the offensive side of the ball. It's a player no one's really thinking of right now, and that's Michael Thomas, the wide receiver of the Saints. People aren't really talking about him because he came back at the end of the last season, but he was really bothered by a high ankle sprain. He missed 9 games last year, 8 for injury, 1 for a suspension for fighting a teammate. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance. He is one of the best players, not just receivers in the NFL. And when he is healthy with a new scheme, Sean Payton's going to tweak the scheme for a stronger arm quarterback, whether Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston. I think we're going to see the best we've ever seen of Michael Thomas.
I'm going to make Giant fans happy and alert here, Steve, by saying Saquon Barkley. I mean, let's face it, Saquon, I didn't know that Quadzilla was allowed to get hurt, but he is human. He did have that ACL last year. I think he might come back bigger, stronger, faster, the way that he works. And so when I watch these footwork drills in the sand and what he's doing, because I think he could be the safety blanket for Daniel Jones in the passing game, and he can give you the home run runs that can change games, that can flip field position. He can take those screen passes and go and make house calls. So the Giants might get very much in this race in the NFC East if Saquon can regain his health and his form.
Yeah, Giants fans perhaps looking at that Adrian Peterson 2012 season when he came back from injury, became the MVP. Say it, Seahawks winning the division last season, but the Rams getting revenge in the postseason, winning up in Seattle. Our Cynthia Freeland examines which stretch of games for each of these teams this year could make or break their season. All right, thank you, Cynthia. Baldy and Steve back now. Baldy, what key factor stands out to you that might sway this division's title?
Well, this division is so exciting. These games, all these games are exciting to watch. I want to pick the Rams, but they have to replace both coordinators. And I've often said that it's harder to replace good coaches than it is good players. So when you lose Shane Waldron to Seattle as the offense coordinator and Brandon Staley, the defense coordinator to the head coach of the Chargers, think about what Brandon Staley accomplished last year. The Rams went from the 17th ranked defense to the first defense. And when they got to the postseason, Seattle didn't look like they knew what to do against the Rams defense. So I like the Rams. They got to overcome all this. Cynthia just said they've got a formidable schedule. They got Tampa on the schedule. You also have to go to Baltimore. You have to go to Green Bay. That's tough. But this is a star-built team. Matt Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald. They're built around their stars. And when their stars shine, this is a very, very good football team.
Yeah, 100% Baldy. This division's up for grabs, but there's just something about the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe it's because we never talk about them unless there's drama, which there tends to be. But look, Seattle's got the best quarterback in the division, Russell Wilson. And last year, that fast start's what got them to the postseason when Russ was cooking. Things really slowed down as the season went along. Well, they fortified the offensive line, getting Gabe Jackson in that trade from the Raiders to go with Dwayne Brown. That should be better. They've got maybe one of the best wide receiver combos in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett at wide receiver. And remember, Shane Waldron, as you mentioned, is coming over from the Rams. Jet sweep, y'all. Both those guys can hit it, and we know DK Metcalf can really hit it, okay? And then Gerald Everett comes over from tight end from the Rams. He is a player that the Rams could never figure out what to do with. Incredibly talented. Pairing him with Will Dissly, if they go 12 personnel, is going to give them a lot of options in the run and passing game. But let's not forget, the Seahawks have the best defensive player no one talks about, Bobby Wagner, who's going to be on his way to Canton one day. Carlos Dunlap's going to be there for a full season. If Jamal Adams can stay healthy, that can maybe overcome the lack of constant pass pressure that they have on that defense.
Yeah, Gerald Everett, a great point there, Steve, because remember, Shane Waldron only brought one coach up from the Rams coaching staff. So Everett certainly helping implement Shane Waldron's offense there in Seattle. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We want to hear from you and who you think will win the NFC West. Go to our Twitter handle at NFL Total Access to vote. We'll reveal the results coming up a little bit later. And coming up... What a great theme song. The 20th anniversary season of Hard Knocks will mark the Cowboys' third time on the show, having previously been featured in 2002 and 2008. Hard Knocks, the Dallas Cowboys, debuts Tuesday, August 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern on HBO and will be available to stream on HBO Max. And this is truly awesome. The improbable rise to stardom of our very own Kurt Warner, who just celebrated his 50th birthday. So happy belated birthday, Kurt. Well, he's coming to a theater near you. His story, the feature film, American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story, retells the story of Warner's true journey from grocery store clerk to Super Bowl MVP, coming December 10th.
Fires it toward the end zone. Once DJ Chark. DJ goes up and gets it. That's going to be a touchdown. They throw a little slant to the right side to DJ Chark. That ball is caught for the touchdown. DJ scores again. Goes to the end zone. DJ Chark in the corner of the end zone. Touchdown. Fires it deep downfield. He's got a man out there. That's DJ Chark. 20, 10-yard line. Did he get to the pylon? Yes, he did. Touchdown. Chark attack.
So many highlights in the first 3 years of his career. We're now joined by Jaguars receiver DJ Chark. DJ, I know you and your wife welcomed your baby daughter, Mackenzie, back in May. First of all, from one girl dad to another, congratulations. I want to know, what's the most significant thing you've learned about yourself this past couple months as you stepped into fatherhood?
I learned that, I had to gain more patience, and she's definitely helped me with that. Also, just being and learning from my wife, and I learned I'm pretty adaptable, so I'm pretty informed in the baby world now.
That's a beautiful picture there. Where are you right now? It looks like you're in front of a chalkboard.
Yeah, we have a little chalkboard in the house, and on it we have a few sharks. It's basically me, my wife, our daughter, and our 2 dogs now.
DJ Shark. I think America wants to know, how many times has Baby Shark been saying to Baby Shark?
She hasn't heard it yet.
All right.
She hasn't heard it yet, so I'm pretty sure once she do hear it, I won't hear it. I hear too much, probably so.
It'll be playing throughout the house for months on end, DJ. I'll promise you that. A big offseason for you, of course, celebrating also your graduation from LSU. Congratulations in order then. And speaking of LSU, you guys have become wide receiver U with Odell and Jarvis Landry, Justin Jefferson, now Jamar Chase. You, of course, made the Pro Bowl in 2019. What have you been working on this offseason to regain that Pro Bowl form and to continue that legacy there as a receiver from LSU?
I've really been focused on my strength, my mobility, being able to withstand, an NFL season, all the things that comes with it, and being just more physical and imposing. So that's been one of my goals. But also just adding small technique and fundamentals to my game as well.
Yeah, you're one of the mainstays there in Jacksonville from your play the first 3 years of your career, but a lot of turnover there. Of course, you have Urban Meyer now leading the way as head coach of the Jaguars and really overseeing the entire football operation. What's been the biggest standout for you about his leadership style?
Just accountability. That's huge to him. The being up front and, being direct, that's been something that's new, but it's good. It's great. We understand. He wants us to know where we stand with him and with the team at all times. He's a pretty open book. So it kind of, takes away the smoke and mirrors from the game and help us all focus and be on the same page.
So you had the turnover in the coaching department. Obviously, you have a rookie quarterback. A little bit more on him in just a second. A lot of people outside Duval County not giving you much of a chance here in 2021, DJ. What are their expectations for you guys there in the locker room for this upcoming season?
Just to go out there and compete, be better than what we were last year. The 1-15 season is somewhere that we don't want to go back. Everyone that's here understands that, and the guys that came in came from a lot of winning programs. So we're trying to develop that winning culture and that just that camaraderie here. And I think we're going to do really good. I think we're going to shock a lot of people. I'm not one of the people that's huge on, setting record goals or anything like that, or saying how many wins or losses we're going to have, but we're going to be an exciting football team for sure.
Yeah, you guys were exciting at times last year. You, Keelan Cole, Laviska Shenault formed quite the trio. With Cole gone now, Marvin Jones in, what can you guys do as a trio to help accelerate the #1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence's development?
We take, a lot of responsibility and accountability when it comes to the passing game. Marvin coming in is a dynamic player. Laviska being young and so dynamic, me still trying to reach new heights. I think we have a lot to prove, but I think it's going to come together real smooth. And definitely being able to have Trevor back there, it's crazy that he's so young and so talented. The sky is the limit really with us right now. We don't know how great we can be, but we know we can be great for sure.
Tim Tebow come to you for receiver advice yet?
Nah, he hasn't. I think he's been holding it down pretty well himself.
All right, DJ Chark, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations once again on the birth of your daughter, your graduation from LSU, and good luck this upcoming season.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
DJ Chark, part of a talented offensive core. You have the newcomers and Marvin Jones and the Clemson rookies coming in. Not listed on there, Laviska Shenault, who many people might predict could be a breakout player in 2021. Brian and Steve back with me now. Not a lot of people, as I mentioned, outside of Duval County giving the Jags much of a chance to make noise this year, Baldy. But why are you a little bit optimistic about the Jags this season?
Because when I went back and you watched the 1-15 season that just played, the offensive line was together most of the year. They had a couple guys miss some games. But they're returning the 5 starting offensive linemen. Again, one of only 4 teams in the league to bring back the starting offensive line. And so when you bring that back, it's going to allow Trevor Lawrence to have a little bit of patience back there. Now, he's going to have James Robinson, who ran for over 1,000 yards and had 10 touchdowns. Travis Etienne. You're going to have 2 backs that you can hand the ball off to. The receivers are just fine. I mean, there is optimism there up front. So Trevor Lawrence doesn't have to feel like he has to do it all by himself, scramble all over the place every play. They're going to be able to settle him down when things aren't going well up front. I believe in the experience of that offensive line coming back. And it's not a mistake that Urban Meyer also brought back George Warhop, who was the offensive line coach. He retained him as the coach of the offensive line.
Well, the great point about how strong they look up front on the offensive side, they've got to flip that to the defensive side, because you look at some of the rankings that this defense had last year, they were between, 27th and 31st worst. By the way, those are points I'm hoping Trae Young hits for the Atlanta Hawks when they come back to try to tie up the series against the Bucks. But, they've got to fix this defense, and they've got some players to do it. Josh Allen, the defensive one, the defensive end who was hurt for a lot of last year. Kayvon Chasen, he's got to step things up. They've got some players there. They go out and they sign Shaquille Griffin on defense, a defensive back from the Seattle Seahawks. So they've got some pieces where they've got to establish some things against a run-heavy division. Think about Tennessee. Think about Indianapolis, what they like to do in the ground game. So they've got to establish a better run defense. And again, there are players that Joe Cullen, the defensive coordinator, has where he can do that part. And then there's Urban Meyer, Baldy. Let's not forget about him. This man is one of the best ever at turning programs around. We could talk about the individual pieces, but the fact of what he did at Utah and what he did at Florida and what he did at Ohio State, there's no reason why he can't do this here. This whole college to NFL thing, that's gone with so much of college football principles being brought to the NFL. And Urban Meyer knows how to communicate with people and coach people the right way. That's another reason for optimism. I'm not saying they're going to win a very strong division there in the AFC South, but if he can lay a foundation for Trevor Lawrence and the crew to develop over the next couple of years, they've really got a chance to change some opinions about what's happening down in Jacksonville.
Well, the culture is a big part of it. Obviously, things weren't good in the locker room over the last few years with Doug Marrone. Guys wanted out of there. But I think, one thing about Urban, he gets guys to play hard and play together. And they're going to hear the voice of Urban Meyer when things aren't done right. And you got to change it. You just got to flat out change it. There's going to be standards. DJ just talked about it. There's responsibility. And those are the things that he's going to keep harping on. But those are the things that win, Steve. Those are the things that turn things around. We've seen it, not every year, but the guys that can do it, that's how they do it. And so take ownership of the team. It starts out there in practice and the commitment to the game. I think he's got a young team around him. He recruited a lot of these kids when he was at Ohio State. So he knows a lot of them and their families and their backgrounds. That will give him a little bit of a jump.
Baldy, you mentioned the offensive line. Steve, you talked about the defensive front. One of the first things Urban Meyer said when he took over that job is he wants to build that team from the defensive line on out. So certainly building in the trenches.